Hi and welcome to stampacademy.com. Today is your first preview for the Holiday 2013 edition of Project Parade. We do 25 plus projects for $24.95. That's less than $1 a project. Your PDF, as always, is located below this video. If you're watching it in YouTube, you'll go to the free video section of www.stampacademy.com, and then you can download the PDF with full instructions, dimensions, and a product list. Today I have a fall-themed one-sheet box for you. We're going to begin with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of pumpkin pie cardstock, and we're going to be using the Gently Falling stamp set. You can certainly use any fall-themed stamp set you like, and this is a two-step stamp, meaning it has an inside and then the detail that goes over. So we're just going to be using the outside for this part. I'm going to be using some chocolate chip ink, and these are our new foam ink pads, so you just have to give them a tap and you can bring your ink right to the surface there. And I'm just going to be randomly stamping all of my leaves onto this piece of cardstock. Now I'm twisting and turning, and just remember to go off the page a little bit because it makes it look more realistic. I'm using a couple of different stamps here just to give it a little bit more interest. And I want to pretty much fill up this whole entire piece of cardstock. And then where you see some empty spaces, we're going to just be putting our little acorn in here. And again, remember to go off the page in different parts. Once you've filled up your whole sheet, you can begin to score, and you can score this with any tool you'd like. I'm going to be using my score tool, and you're going to be scoring on the back of your cardstock, not on the part where you initially stamped. So first we're going to score in the portrait, and we're going to do that at 2.5, and then we're going to score again at 6. You're going to turn it to the landscape, and you're going to score it at 4.5 and again at 6.5. You're going to take your bone folder and you're going to score first in one direction and then in another. It's very important that you score really well on these lines here. Otherwise, your next step is going to be very difficult. So you can go back and forth just so that you get a nice, crisp score line. Okay, once you do that, you'll have this great scored piece of cardstock, and what you're going to be doing is pushing these parts in here, and then you're actually going to be bringing the horizontal fold to the vertical fold. And what I mean by that is you're going in here and you're bringing this edge up so that you have these edges tight like that. You're going to hold that and then you're going to score it. And you can certainly run your bone folder in there to score that. I'll show you again. You're going to put your finger back here. That kind of makes it easier. And you're going to be bringing this edge to this edge. Now I'm kind of holding this corner down here in with my finger because I don't want it to get smashed. And then once you have your line straight like that, you're going to just score. And before I let go, I'm going to go in with my bone folder and score again. And you do exactly the same thing on the other side. Once you kind of get the feel for it, it makes it easier. And again, you're bringing one up to the other so that these lines are perfectly parallel. And then you're just going to push in with your knuckles and come in with your bone folder to crisp up your line. Do the same thing here. So this part is pushing up, and then that little corner you want in. And again, push in like this. And then you're going to do the same thing. I find it easier to flatten it when it's down, so you're going to do that. And when you push it in, these little pieces on the edge are going to just get pushed in a little bit. I don't want them to be scored. So you're just going to kind of push them in like this. And that's going to give you this box. So that's it from the side and the other side. And now we're going to create the piece that holds it together. We're going to be using our window frame framelits, and we're going to be using the third smallest. I've numbered from outside to inside, and if you do that, it's the number 4. And you're going to just take any piece of brown cardstock that you have. This happens to be textured, but you certainly don't need textured. I'm going to be using a magnetic platform. If you don't have a magnetic platform, that's not a problem. Just use the multi-purpose platform that came with your Big Shot and set it to tab 2. You're going to put a cutting plate down, and then you're going to put your cardstock. You're going to take your framelit with the ridge side down, put it over that, cover it with another cutting plate, and run this through the Big Shot. When it comes out, you're going to have this piece. Make sure that you put your framelits away right away because they're small sometimes and you don't want them to get lost. You're going to take a stamp and pierce mat. You're going to put your cardstock down, and then you're going to take the festive paper piercing pack, and this is one of the pieces that come inside. You're going to line it up over the framelit right there, and it's made to match it perfectly. And then you're going to take your paper piercer, and you're just going to go in through those little holes all the way around until you've pierced right back to your original starting point. When you remove that, you're going to have this cool pierced piece, and now we're going to make the piece that's going to sit inside of that. So to do that, we're going to take just a scrap of white cardstock, and this time I'm going to be using some pumpkin pie ink, which matches my pumpkin pie paper, and I'm going to be using the inside of those stamps, and I'm going to really be stamping all over this because I want to have full coverage here, and I'm stamping first once and then again, and I'm doing that all over. I know that this is more than I'm going to need on my cardstock. Now to fill in those little white gaps, I'm going to be using some crumb cake ink, and I'm going to use the inside of my little acorn. Just remember you want to change directions because it's going to look kind of silly if everything goes in the same direction. Now, as I said before, this is a 2-step stamp, which means that each one of these leaves has a corresponding detailed leaf that goes on top of it. Now, I'm not going to worry if I'm perfectly on top. I'm just going to kind of line it up as best I can and just come in over those images. Now, if I wanted to, I could certainly take a little extra time and line these up perfectly, but it's really not important for this project. So you just keep going in with your detailed stamps and just stamp over them to get that nice detailed leaf. Even our little acorn has its own detail, and that's going to go right over the top here. And again, I'm really not worried about it lining up perfectly. Once I have that done, I'm going to go and take the smaller framelit. This time it's the second smallest, or the number 5 framelit. And I'm going to kind of find the spot that looks the way I want it to. So this kind of seems to be the one that's the most filled up. So I'm going to be using that. I'm going to go back to my magnetic platform, put down my cutting plate, and then, as I said, I'm just going to find the spot on here that I would like to use, and then I'm going to cover it with another cutting plate and run it through the Big Shot. When it comes out, I'm going to have the piece that corresponds perfectly to the other framelit that I just cut out, and I'm going to adhere one to the other with some snail adhesive. You're just going to line that up right over the other piece. You line up your corners, and then just give it a rub. Sometimes I like to just burnish it in just to make sure that that adhesive holds. You're going to go back to your box, and what you're going to be doing is adhering one side. So what I like to do is see which side of the box I like better. I like this side better, so that's going to be the front. And then I do the same thing with the tag. I see which side I like better, and I think I like this one better. So I'm going to be bending this in half over the top. Now you can certainly put this in your trimmer and do this and kind of crease it, but it doesn't really matter. It creases nicely by itself. You're going to then take your crocodile and you're going to line that up over the top, and you're going to just punch. I like to take my little paper piercer and just pull out the excess pieces of paper so that I can see into that little hole again. Because if you do that, it's easier to come back in and line up in exactly the same size. Now, it doesn't matter because we're going to be putting some ribbon here, so if those lines weren't perfectly lined up, it wouldn't make a difference. You're going to then come in and you're going to put some adhesive on the back here, which I probably should have done before I punched those holes, but I don't like to get the adhesive in the actual hole, so I like to do it after. And I put a generous amount of adhesive on the back here because I want to make sure that this does not fall apart when it's handled. So I'm going to line up these holes here, and sometimes you have a stray piece of paper that just does not want to go away. And then I'm going to come in and line up those holes in the back. And once they're lined up, you can adhere that back. And then I'm going to actually let this go, and it's going to open up a little bit. And then I'm going to take my Early Espresso stitched ribbon, and I'm going to be cutting a little angle here, which is going to make it easier for me to thread this through those little holes. Okay, I'm going to hold these down, and I'm going to come in through the back, and I'm just going to pull through. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to come in through the back and pull through. So now this is going to stay like this. You're going to fill this with candy or whatever treat you'd like to put in there, and then you're going to come in and you're going to feed it through the front holes. Just make sure that you grab the whole piece. So you're going to pull that tight, and that's going to close your box. And then you're just simply going to feed this ribbon through the top. And you're going to pull that nice and tight, and then you're going to tie a bow. When I have that tied, I'm going to then trim my edges because I kind of frayed them a little bit. Once you've tied the bow, you're then going to decorate the front of the box. I love to make these ribbon medallions. They're very easy to do. You just take one of our jumbo sticky rounds, and you're going to peel off this adhesive backing, which is going to expose the very sticky side. I'm then going to be using some cherry cobbler seam binding, and this is very easy to do. You're just going to stick this down, and this is very sticky, so you don't want to touch it with your fingers. You're going to then pleat this, and then as you push down, it's going to stick that next piece into the sticky round. And then you just keep going in a circle. And I like to make these little points that stick up. You don't have to do that. You can just pleat it. But if you don't like what you do, you can certainly just pull the ribbon up, and it comes up pretty easily. And just keep going around in a complete circle until you get right back where you started again. And the whole time you're just pleating, and every time you finish one pleat, you're going to push down with your finger, and you're going to make the next pleat. We're going to be covering a lot of this up with some leaves, so don't really get too crazy about getting this perfect. They're just so fun to do that you're going to be putting them all over all of your projects. When you get to this end here where you started, you're going to make your final pleat, and then you're going to come down so that it sticks below. And then you just keep going with the pleats. You can overlap the other ones that you did, which will hold them down a little bit better. And just keep going around in a circle until you get back to where you started on this row. When you do that, you're just going to do the same thing where you just kind of push down so that you start a new row. And you're going to do the same thing. And then when you get to the end, you just want to flap a piece of your fabric down so that it sticks and you don't have any of that sticky round showing. You're going to then use your ribbon scissor to cut this. And as I said, you can then just flap that down and stick it right into that. You're going to just bring this sticky round right up to this piece, and when you peel off the backing, it's going to be so sticky. So you want to be close because you don't want to have to move around because it'll stick to anything. You're going to line this up over the top of your box and then just adhere it. And as you can see, it's kind of funky. It's not really in a perfect round. So if you want to, you come in with your paper piercer and then pick up a glue dot. And then you can kind of manipulate these pieces the way you want them. So you can pick them up a little bit and then just make like another pleat here, and then do the same thing to make this pleat come in a little bit more. You just put this glue dot here, and then what you're going to do is just take this top pleat, and I just push it with my paper piercer, and it kind of comes down a little bit, so that'll bring that in. You can manipulate this any way you like. You can even pull it off, and then it'll adhere again. So it's up to you. You just continue to play with it until it looks the way you want. Once you're satisfied with that, you're going to take a piece of scrap Whisper White cardstock, and you're going to do 2 leaves. The first one is going to be in pumpkin pie, and you're going to stamp off and then onto your cardstock. And you should really clean this with a cleaning pad, but to save time I'm not going to, because I'm going from a lighter color to a darker color. And I'm just going to put this in some cherry cobbler, again stamp off and then stamp on. I'm going to go back to my chocolate chip, and I'm doing the outline this time, and I'm going to ink that up and stamp and do the same thing on that one. You're going to come in with your paper snips, and you're going to begin to just cut around your leaf. And if you just move your paper instead of your scissor, it's a little bit easier. And you can come as tight to that leaf as possible, but just try and keep the brown chocolate chip outline in there. And just keep going around both of your leaves until you've cut them out. When you have them cut out, you can take one leaf and put a glue dot on the back of it here, and then adhere one of the leaves to the other, and then turn them both over, and you're going to put a couple of Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of your leaves. Remove the adhesive backing to the Stampin' Dimensionals, and then you're going to come in and adhere that right on top of that little medallion that you've created. So this is what you have so far, and enough is never enough. So we're going to take some dazzling details, and we're just going to outline all of those veins in the leaf. So you're just going to go around the outside, and you don't have to be exact with this. This is forgiving as well. And just go up and down all of those veins until you've done the entire leaf, and then you're going to move to the other side, and you're going to do exactly the same thing with this one. Now these are overlapped, so you don't really have to do this whole leaf. This does take a couple of minutes to dry. And after it dries, you have your finished project, and this would be great on your Thanksgiving table or for some teacher gifts or neighbors. And that's been your Project Parade project for today. Again, this is a preview project of the holiday 2013 edition of Project Parade at stampacademy.com. We do 25 plus projects for $24.95. That's less than $1 a project. You can participate no matter where you live in the world. It's electronic. You'll get a full video and a PDF with a supply list, directions, and a product sheet. If you have any questions for us, we are at mail@stampacademy.com.